And welcome back to Stories from the River. This is your host, Charlie Malouf, and I'm here with a frequent guest, return visitor, Mr. Will Luke, our Senior Director of Project Management. Will, welcome back to the pod.
Long time no chat.
That's true. Hey, we're in the midst of our Global Leadership Summit recap series. Will, you ready to do another one?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Welcome to Stories from the River, a show in which we go behind the scenes at Broad River Retail.
So we're in studio today. We're recording this on a Friday. This will drop on Thursday, September the 11th. This will be our 7th episode in the GLS 25 recap series. I mean, it's a lot of content in this series, isn't it?
It is. So fun fact, September 11th, my daughter gets her driving permit. So it's a big day.
That is a big day. That's a big day. And we just finished, Will and I, on Tuesday, we dropped the Dr. James Hewitt episode. And so we'll put links to the previous episodes here in the show notes. But this one is a really special one. This one is on kind of, I don't know if you want to call him the godfather of leadership or modern day leadership, but John Maxwell. And this is a topic about legacy. And it was really kind of broken down into two parts because one, John was honored for the first part. And then the second one, John can't leave the stage without teaching.
Yeah.
He's a teacher by nature. So initial impressions, Will, and why did you want to kind of talk about John Maxwell?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, I got pulled out of the GLS during John Maxwell. And so with this opportunity, it was good to kind of force me to go back and rewatch it. And when you think of those days being so information packed, being able to go back and just really digest one or two sessions and only focus on that, I think allowed me to kind of absorb at a deeper level versus, I don't know if you're like me, where you look back through your notes for events like that. And for the first speaker, you got the most notes, and then each subsequent speaker, you have less notes. Mm-hmm. And I think John was on day 2, right? So that was when my notes were getting shorter. And so coming back to someone kind of as profound and influential as him, just kind of laser focused on that, I think was really good for me. And I didn't know that he was really the influencer, if you will, for the GLS as well. I didn't either, but that's no surprise, right? Knowing him and his life. So first of all, similar to you, my notes are going to be sporadic, and it's hard to be dialed in 100%. For every speaker. I don't know if it's 10 speakers or 12 speakers. It was quite a bit, and so and I did get pulled away at times or two, and I don't think I attended John's talk live for 100% of it, because I think I had a call I had to attend to, and everyone was telling me how much they loved it. I caught the tail end of it. Yeah.
So it was great to kind of go in and have that video on demand access to watch it, and then make sure I take copious amounts of notes.
Yeah.
By the way, I wish they would leave that video on demand access up a little bit longer.
It was good.
Yeah. So it was legacy. So let's talk about John's life for a little bit, because one thing that to know John Maxwell, it's one thing to know and respect his teachings. It's another to know and respect how he lives his life. And I think it's authentic through and through. I'm reminded of a quote from that we heard Inky Johnson say. He said, I don't want to be a public success, but a private failure. And I think John lives his life very much that way. And forgive us for a moment. Will's got his notes. I've got my laptop. We don't really want to miss a note.
We've got a teleprompter over here.
Yeah, I've got my teleprompter. So the first thing was this topic of a legacy leader, and to run the race well for decade after decade. They did a tribute video to John, which I think was really cool. And I learned some things in that tribute video, if I can continue on this. First of all, I did know he's been married for 55 years to Margaret. There's a quote that's attributed to him that's, "Everything rises and falls on leadership." So he is a student of leadership. He's a believer in leadership. He's dedicated his life after he was a church pastor to really kind of saying, hey, I want to help leaders be better leaders, help people discover their giftedness in leadership and teach on leadership.
I didn't know that quote was from him, but we've heard that a time or two at Broad River. Everything rises and falls with leadership. And yeah, and really to your comments, just kind of the consistency over time is kind of proof of credibility. And I was thinking on the drive in this morning, I think, is it the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership might have been one of the first, or like in the first handful of leadership books I ever read. And for some reason, the law of the lid from that book was what stuck with me. So it's kind of interesting, maybe to come full circle, and because it's one of the first times I've heard John talk, and just kind of hear kind of that passion coming from him versus just reading it out of the pages of a book.
Two things I want to comment on from what you just said. That quote comes from Carl. He says it around the river a lot. Everything rises and falls on leadership. Carl was Maxwell trained, and I actually listened.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I've listened to John speak a lot on his podcast, and so I'm familiar with that quote. But I also knew that Carl was Maxwell trained. So it's interesting that you heard it at Broad River, and you had no idea that it was associated with and originated from Maxwell. To me, I find that super interesting. But it speaks to his transformational impact, and how he has chosen to kind of lead his life by inspiring through others.
And we all wish that that is in essence the legacy, right? We all wish that we had sound bites that other people were repeating.
Well, that people see truth in too, and connect with. The other thing that I was wondering today is how long is it going to take you to speak about the law of the lid, because I know how important that is to you, and you got it out early. So we hit two things here. So I want to talk. Yeah, there we go. I want to talk about two things from the tribute video that I learned. I didn't know that this thing he started was Equip, which was an international nonprofit dedicated to transforming lives through faith-based leadership, and just the impact that it's had. And it says when people learn good values and live good values, their lives become more valuable. I mean, he's got just one-liner after one-liner that just kind of sits with you and resonates. And he said, you can change the world one table at a time. So this nonprofit group, Equip, came up with transformational tables, and that ultimately led to the Maxwell Leadership Foundation. And then they took this thing that had in multiple countries and thousands of lives that were transformed into iLead. And iLead was created to transform schools. So it went from countries to schools, or business leaders, organizational leaders in countries to schools. And now over 32,000 plus schools have this program in it. And it's changed over 14 million lives. And then if you just the tribute video went by quickly. I rewound it a few times, but he's always looking ahead, and they have a 2050 vision to continue to implement transformation tables and grow to more countries and more schools. So they took the concept of transformational tables, one table at a time, one life at a time, instilling value in that person's life, one person at a time, into countries, schools, and they're not done yet. At 78 years old, he's still looking to kind of do his best work and to grow into more countries and have bigger goals. So I got a lot just from the tribute video.
Yeah, 2050. Who has a 25-year vision? Well, maybe Bradley Sullivan. I don't know. I
read David Green's book. He was the founder of Hobby Lobby.
Okay.
And he talked about his business coach gave him think in 150-year terms. And it was, that was a long time to set these really long goals. Of course, in God's ecosystem, it's really, really short amount of time. And so, just thinking multi-generationally at that level. And then in his book, and he talks about that in his book that's titled Business Not by the Book. And then I talked with Mark Batterson, one of my favorite authors, who's also been mentored and inspired by John Maxwell. And he thinks in 70-year increments, going down to the third generation, such that when they built the capital turnaround, they built the foundation so strong and built this extra floor, or the ability to add an extra floor, knowing that he would never, in his lifetime or his career, wouldn't ever use it, but 70-year increments that they would probably use it. So I do think there's wisdom. We tried at Broad River. We've been around less than 25 years. I think we're on our 23rd year or something. Our first store opened in May 2003, and we're 2025. We haven't even hit
30,
we haven't even hit our 25-year anniversary. And we've had some NDEs, near-death experiences, but we're still bold enough to say, hey, we want to be long-term thinkers. So I think there's a lot of wisdom to think about elongating your timeline, and not just in your own life, but in the lives that you might, inspire in. And, I used to not know a lot about legacy or even think about legacy or internalize that. I think maybe the older my kids got, the more the company's progressed, and where you don't feel like you're fighting for the day, but you're fighting for kind of a longer term vision. I have come to appreciate a little bit more about being legacy minded.
Yeah. And you mentioned the multi-generational element of it. And I think maybe that's a good segue because, or I don't want to skip ahead on you, but he started by talking about kind of I think he met with his father shortly before his father passed away, and his father gave him 29 leadership lessons that he documented. So I just got to thinking about legacy can also be kind of catapulted through, if you look at it kind of through a multi-generational lens.
John was interviewed by Craig Groeschel on this deal before he started teaching. And Craig Groeschel said that John Maxwell is the single best teacher and model of servant leadership in our lifetime. Wow, that's a drop the mic statement right there. And he said that John suggested the idea of GLS many years ago. And he said, leaders are like eagles. In 1996, you shouldn't run like chickens if you're made to soar like eagles, something like that. But he talked about this business dinner. He was in Dallas having dinner with his friend Bill from Willow Church or Willow Creek Church. And he said, you should train leaders around the world. And that's when GLS was first birthed in his heart. And the guy said to John, you help me do it. And they did it together one year. And then John said, you do it on your own after that. So anyways, I thought that was pretty cool. And Craig presented John with the Lifetime Leadership Legacy Award. And, just a couple other quotes I have here. They said, there's 58,000 business leader coaches trained by John Maxwell active throughout the world. And they said that the 3 millionth person, I don't know how they count this, but across the world has come to faith in Jesus through John Maxwell. And that true success, John said, true success is that when those who know you best love you and respect you the most. So that's living an authentic life, publicly and privately. So all that is kind of how they started and presented John with this award, this Lifetime Leadership Legacy Award. The last thing I want to say on this.
This is just the intro, Charlie.
I know. The last thing I want to say with this was recorded on August the 8th. We happen to know that Ashley for the Arts and AFI Domination event was a day or two before that. And John spoke and presented with the Ashley corporate team in Wisconsin for the whole day. So he was doing that with the Ashley team right before he spoke at the GLS Summit. So that's the intro part. And then we can, any more you have there? Otherwise, we'll get right into what he taught.
I think you mentioned as well about how kind of the GLS came to be. And I think I had in my notes that it started with Craig Groeschel initially hung up on John Maxwell when he called thinking it was a prank. And so he said he's been apologizing for 30 years that he hung up on his hero.
Yeah. Well, he thought someone was so John had become a hero of Craig early in his career.
Yeah.
I think is what he said. And that, so John found out about Craig and he called him directly and said, hey, I'm John Maxwell. And Craig just said, yeah, whatever, and hung up on him. And John called him right back. No, I really am John Maxwell. And so he was sorry that he had hung up on him. That was pretty funny. All right, so let's talk about so John then proceeded, Craig left, and then John proceeded to teach. His topic was how to leave a legacy that matters. So he talked about his 92-year-old father, and his dad has since passed away. It's funny, at 92 years old, the story was his dad told him, and I just thought, how awesome is it to have a dad like this? But his dad told him, son, I think my greatest days are still ahead of me. He told him that at 92. His dad would live to the age of 98 and would pass away in 2020 through a couple of strokes, not through COVID. But he said, the day or two before his death, his dad was in hospice, and this is the story you were alluding to. And he told the nurse, "Hey, do all the medical things you need to do, but then I want some alone time with my dad." And man, golly, he said then he had written down 29 lessons that his dad had taught him, and so they spent like 5 hours together, and he would go tell him one lesson. and then go kiss him on the cheek. I mean, what a way to like say goodbye to your dad. Yeah. I mean, that gets me choked up.
Are those lessons in a book somewhere?
We'll have to look that up. Will, I'm not, you may have to ask ChatGPT, but he may, I want to say maybe he published them on his podcast. That was during COVID time, pandemic time. He may have done, I don't know if he did all 29, but he may have done a good number of them. We'll look that up. That'll be a good takeaway. If we find it, we'll put them in the show notes here. And he knew that would be the final day that he saw his dad. And so he was just reflecting on legacy as something that's meaningful. And he said, legacy is something, I love this way he framed it up. He said, it's something that you leave for people and in people, but what you leave in people is more important than what you leave for them. That what's in them is never lost. Tangible items are lost. And so he talked about his three things that he had on legacy.
Yeah. I mean, I have 4 is the temporary stuff that disappears, and in is principles that will last forever. And that, that quote's so good that it's worth repeating.
How powerful is that? Say that one more time.
What you leave in people is more important than what you leave for people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that was really, he defined it, I think, as the core principle from those 29 lessons.
I think also I would say, John's now 78 years old. He didn't like come up with this point of view like yesterday or last year. The thing about John is he came up with this point of view. He said at age 55, he talked about writing something down. We'll go through that.
Yeah.
But this has been like something, I think if you listen to him back when he was 30s or 40s, he decided how he wanted to live his life by influencing and transforming people. And so we talk about consistency and a life well lived. He's got decades of consistently going after this way to like invest in people. And I love his framework. Let's go through his framework
real fast. If you think about what we talked about earlier today with the James Hewitt podcast, really that long-term vision is that kind of recovery or that low gear where you have the time to think and to plan. And so many of us don't get to that time.
There's no question that John has spent time in reflection, and I think his daily habits are he gets up early, like 5 a.m. or 4 a.m., and he just goes straight to his laptop or computer and he starts writing. And so he spends time in writing, reading, reflecting, thinking, and that's how he gets his day started. And he's been doing that daily for a long time, over a long period of time. And even I think at his last week of the year, because he has a personal word of the year every year, and he'll spend a week of just thinking time, reflecting time of the past year and so he's got a lot of disciplines and habits that he talks about and teaches that helps him achieve and produce the plethora of, he's written over 88 like books. So that's a lot of volume, but he's been so diligent and consistent with how he's lived his life. And he's put these little, I don't know if you want to call them life hacks, but disciplines and standards in place.
They're all super relatable, digestible, powerful. Mm-hmm. I know in his books, he always has a good story to illustrate it as well.
Yeah. So his 3 things, his 3 things, which are really about how to leave a legacy that matters. Okay. So he says, number 1, I have a destiny to fulfill. I have a destiny to fulfill. And he talked about his illustration with the destiny. He had a scripture verse, Psalm 139:16, that accompanied the first thing. And he said his picture that he wanted people to think about was a compass is the picture that he wanted you to envision. Where are you going? I'll keep. So, and he said, that's really the purpose picture. And so he even gave him a framework for like, well, okay, the purpose picture, great. Where am I going? How do you determine your purpose? And he talked about that a little bit.
Where am I going that will make my life matter?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He said, 2 questions you can ask yourself if you're struggling with, how to determine your purpose is ask yourself what you're passionate about. But he said, passion is the energizer. It's what fuels you. I love the story. He said, he was talking with someone who said, I think I'm burned out. He goes, well, how can you be burned out if you've never been on fire? People ask him, are you going to retire? And he goes, why would I? He says he's doing what he loves to do. He's doing what he wants to do when he wants to do it. if that's retirement, he's doing it. He's just not retired to go off into the sunset. Is how he wants to kind of live his life. But he also talked about like, hey, don't just do what you're passionate about if like it adds no value. To your point, it says because then you may want to just call that a hobby.
Yeah, and I think the way he positioned it is, well, what if I'm really passionate about something but I'm not good at it? Right? Then you make it a hobby. And I think about, I mean, how many different speakers have we had at the River that have talked about purpose, and how many books exist about it? And I know it sometimes becomes this really like philosophical, abstract pursuit. You know, what is my purpose? And I don't know that I've heard it kind of distilled down as simple as he does it, that it's what are you passionate about, and then where do you have natural strengths?
Yeah.
And really looking at kind of that Venn diagram overlap, if you will, and that's the thing.
Makes it pretty simple, right?
Right.
Yeah. What are you passionate about, and what is your giftedness? What are your strengths? And once you do that, you can have passion and purpose. So that can be your compass. Okay.
And I think I've talked about this in the podcast before, but that conversation always brings me back to when did we do the imperative survey?
Was that 2019?
2019.
Or during a year of purpose?
Which, strangely enough, I don't hear other people talk about it, but for me, that was the super impactful point that really helped me kind of reevaluate workplace fulfillment and recognize, well, my passions and my strengths didn't align, and recognizing to get those things aligned was critically important. And then, oh, by the way, when those two things aligned, I worked less, and I had, I think, what was the most productive and best year of my career. So funny how that works.
Yeah. I mean, I think you had a passion for retail, but it was like adjacent to what your core was. And so once you kind of moved into your strength, I guess a little bit less on the retail performance side, but more on the retail operations side, man, you've really thrived and flourished and really had a whole lot more. You're and now all these projects, you've definitely developed a niche. I don't know how you say it.
Both work.
Yeah. What's the Canadian way?
Well, I would say niche.
Okay, niche. I said that for you then. You've definitely developed.
Like here they say click, and I think in Canada they say a clique.
Okay, so niche. You've definitely developed your sweet spot for where your strengths are really shining, I would say.
I think one element of that too is a lot of people beat themselves up about feeling like they should have a certain strength because they think a certain strength is necessary for the role they're in. And that's what really connected for me. And I think Imperative had 3 different levels of kind of influence. You could be someone that thrives off influencing individuals. You could be, and then there was, I think, more of like groups and teams. And then there was more of like a social, philosophical, really global level. And so for me, recognizing, well, I love influencing groups and creating systems that impact groups. That's what makes me fulfilled, made me feel good that when I felt that maybe that one-on-one influence wasn't my passion, it didn't make me feel like I was a defective leader, so to speak.
Yeah. That's a powerful study. And I know that meant a lot to you. And we're still reflecting on it here 6 years later.
Must have meant something. And I hope we're doing that for this 6 years from now.
Man, I hope so. Okay. So compass was number 1.
Destiny to fulfill. Where am I going that will make my life matter?
That's right. And his quotes here were, you were born for something, plan for your life even before you had life. And he said, because your gift back to God is what you really do with your life. And that's what may have inspired one of my favorite quotes from Mark Batterson, which is, it goes like this. Our potential is God's gift to us. What we do with our potential is our gift back to God. And so that's some version of saying the same thing. Okay, so that's the compass, that's the purpose, that's the passion. And then number 2 is the clock. The picture of your legacy is, what am I doing now? And so just, it's I have a contribution to make. And the scripture verse he gave with that was 1 Corinthians 12:7. He said, I want you to picture a clock. What am I doing now that will make my life matter? And so compass and then clock, he keeps it in the C's. The clock is the today picture of your legacy. And he said, also, he talked about the Sermon on the Mount, a lot, Matthew 5, 13 through 16, which is why I have this Be a Light shirt, that inspired our Lighthouse Fund. And he talked a lot about, salt and light. And he said, let me, on the Sermon on the Mount, he goes, the scripture says, let me tell you why you are here. It's to be salt seasoning, to bring out the God flavors of this earth. You're here to be light, to bring out the God colors in the world. God is not a secret to be kept. We're going public with this, as public as a city on a hill. And by opening up to others, you'll prompt others to open up with God. Be these salt shaker and a light bulb. So he's got this, he says on his iPhone screen saver, he's got the image of the salt shaker and the light bulb. And so he wanted to intentionally add value to people. And anyways, that's why he said he wrote the High Road Leadership book. He was a little leadership sad right now. So he wanted exceptional living as high road leadership. And he said, the thing about high road leadership is there's not much traffic there. And he wrote 12 chapters about what it is and what high road leaders do. And he said, that's being a salt and light life. People will describe your life in one sentence. So pick it now.
The soundbite I like there was make people hungry, not angry.
Yeah, that's a good one. Make people hungry, not angry. Yeah.
Well, I thought we were going to end on that. People describe your life in one sentence. Pick it now. Let's come back to that.
Okay. So that's
number 3, the legacy to leave.
Yeah. So there's the compass, there's the clock, and then there's the companions. And that's like the compounding picture of your legacy. And so the initial scripture verse for that was 2 Timothy 2:2. And he said, a picture of companions, who am I developing that will make my life live on and continue? And that's a pretty profound thought, because I don't think about that all the time, but he has spent some time reflecting on that, because he doesn't want to just have his life have an impact in this life. He's thinking decades beyond. We talked about that 2050 vision. And so he said this quote, who is going with me? He wants to make a difference with people who want to make a difference at a time that makes a difference. I thought that was pretty powerful.
It's wild. And, I'm still thinking about what you said earlier about the 150-year plan, because really what that force is I'm not going to be here to make that plan happen. So the only way it can happen is through other people. So, I'm sure that's the intentionality of that exercise.
That also makes me think of, I think it's the Greek proverb that we talk about a lot is, we're enjoying the benefit of the shade from the trees that we never planted. And so that's somewhat acknowledging we're standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah.
A lot of sacrifice was paved before us, whether your country or your life or your family. You think about older generations. And so then how should we respond to that benefit that we've received? We are also to plant seeds for trees, the shade of which we'll never enjoy. And that's okay. That's what we're supposed to do.
Well, then there's the Chinese proverb, the best time to plant a tree was 25 years ago. The next best time is today.
That's right. Yeah. He has a book called Today Matters.
This is the Proverbs podcast.
That's right. He's inspired a lot of proverbs. He's probably borrowed from a lot of proverbs, and he has a lot of on his own. So he says, he's 78 years old. He's got 7 companies, highly successful. But he also said, I'm only here because of the goodness and giftedness of God in my life and the people in my life. And he recognizes who the source is. And he said he recounts his 75th birthday. He said he was even uncomfortable with the 5-minute video. At his 75th birthday, he said, Chris Tomlin, let's come do some praise and worship. Because he says he's just a salt shaker. He's just the light. But he's leaving a legacy that matters. He said leaving a legacy that matters is a wonderful way to say thank you to God and to others. And then I think I love what he wrote. He said he wrote it at age 55. He wrote these legacy statements, and I don't have them all written down, but I do have that. The point of the legacy statements were, character matters, people matter, perspective matters, attitude matters, passion matters, growth matters, faith matters, consistency matters, and legacy matters. And all these things that his I will statements that he said he wrote at age 55 are why he's still living and acting today at 78 years old and hasn't retired and is still living out his purpose and living with intentionality and still trying to inspire leaders who will, inspire others who he'll never see or, so it's a beautiful life well lived.
I looked up the High Road Leadership, and there's a chart on his website that goes through some of those values or kind of different leadership attributes. And it shows what the high road action is, or the high road mindset, the kind of the middle road and the low road. And it's a super jam-packed infographic that's worth looking at.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's one thing about John Maxwell and seeing someone who lives their life authentically. If it's not convicting and inspiring, I don't know what is. It inspires me to want to do more, to be more intentional, to spend more time reflecting on the impact I want to have, the legacy I want to have. And, you have children, I have children, and at some point they're going to be sitting in these chairs and talking about, will they be talking about the legacy and the lessons they learned from us? And I don't think I would give myself 100 or score 100 all the time on those things. But I think what I would say to give myself grace is there's still time.
Yeah.
I mean, he's, there's still time, and you can have a lot of your success after the age of 50. I don't know. I just turned 50. So you can have a lot of your impact after some people might be thinking about slowing down. That's the time maybe to start thinking about getting fired up.
I think the important lesson here too is that it doesn't happen by accident, right? So we can have kind of hopes and aspirations, but if you don't kind of go pen to paper and really, for lack of a better term, map out what that looks like or add that layer of intentionality, it won't happen. And I thought we'd spend a lot of time on that question. The people described your life in one sentence.
Well, how does that resonate with you?
I think first it's hard to distill that down to one sentence. Mm-hmm. And then you think about, okay, do I approach that from a leadership perspective or a non-leadership perspective? Mm-hmm. And I spent a lot of time thinking about that question because I was nervous that you were going to ask me. I was nervous that you were going to ask me on the podcast and put me on the spot. So ironically and controversially enough, this is one of the things I wrote down here is I hope that I've inspired others to not make work their identity and to chase their A+ life. Yeah. And so, so many people make kind of their work or their career all who they are. And maybe if their job is at that intersection of passion and talent, that's a good thing, but it isn't always for people. And they maybe miss out on chasing the things that really matter to them. But then more importantly, it's, and I felt your passion talking about this earlier. We both have young kids. The story about John and his dad, I think about what can I leave my kids with, and how can I catapult them?
Well, there's so much gold in he keeps it so simple. And so we could have rested on a lot of these states. I don't know. I don't have a one sentence for, they're going to talk about my life in one sentence, pick it now. But I can spend
it could be a light. I don't know.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that the one that resonated today with me as I was reflecting on his talk, it wasn't necessarily compass and it wasn't necessarily clock, but it was companions. And it's really don't go another proverb.
I felt it coming.
I felt it coming. I talked myself into it.
Yeah.
If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Yeah.
And that's an old African proverb. But the idea of investing in others, that legacy in them, say yes to that meeting, say yes to that coffee meeting, say yes to that mentorship request. Maybe seek those opportunities to pour into others. And so that's the one that's kind of hit me today is the companion. Who are you walking with? And that can kind of continue how can you leave a lesson or how can you leave a legacy in others who you're walking with? But I think whether you rest on the compass, the clock, or the companions, I think they all add a lot of value. And but you can go a lot further together, and your legacy can live on with others who you're surrounding yourself with and walking with, and helping to teach and inspire, and also who you're learning from. Who are you listening to? Who are you following? Maxwell, I brought a couple books. This one is super interesting. This is the Maxwell Leadership Bible. So he's taken the whole Bible and written a like leadership messages throughout it. It's interesting how I got this Bible. It was like incorrectly mailed to us from Amazon at the office one time.
It just showed up.
It just showed up. It literally just showed up. It wasn't intended to us. And the other one I wanted to show here is, I have heard John talk about the best book on leadership that he's ever read was The Leadership Challenge by James Kouzes and Barry Posner. And so that is one that he's talked about, which is the best book on leadership that he's ever read that inspired him. And he's well read. He reads a lot of books. He's a lifelong learner, and he's certainly lived a life worth emulating. And I think that should inspire us to like not get lackadaisical in our walk, in our purpose, in our ability to inspire and have influence. The job's not done. And as long as we have breath in our lungs, we still have purpose, and our best days are still ahead. And I love that perspective he got from his dad. Always see a brighter future, and that your best days are still ahead because you still have an ability to plant seeds, to sow seeds, to leave a legacy, and to make an imprint and a difference in those around us. And that's just paying it forward to the future generations. So this was a great talk on John Maxwell and our tribute to him doing this recap episode. Final words, Will?
I just think we got to keep asking that question, asking people how they describe their life. So, I was asking some of my kids this last night as I was thinking about this, and I think I phrased the question like, if you could have it say one sentence on your tombstone, what would it say? And of course, kids look at you and say like, Dad, or they roll their eyes at you. But I got to thinking that it's a question you have to keep asking, because it's not easy for people to go there, and so sometimes you have to really push them or inspire them to go there. But when they go there, it's a really, really beautiful place.
Yeah. It's how do people experience you? How do you want them to experience you? As Michael Hyatt says, nobody ever just drifts to a destination they would have chosen. And, Stephen Covey said, begin with the end in mind. And so to go to, I think Warren Buffett or someone else has said, write a eulogy statement about your life. And so go to the end of your life, write your eulogy, and that will help dictate how you want to live your life, and to live it with purpose, with the urgency to do it today, to get it done today, and with others who you can kind of help inspire and be inspired by. So, Will, thanks for sitting with me and sharing some of our takeaways from John Maxwell on the Global Leadership Summit Recap Series. We're going to bring you more content from this series. There's just so much gold that we're still digging for and mining for. So thanks for joining us every Tuesday and Thursday here at Stories from the River. Try to bring you the freshest content at retail, wherever you're getting your content, your podcast content, whether it's on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for listening to Stories from the River. To check out more episodes, visit storiesfromtheriver.com. To watch this episode, go to youtube.com/@storiesfromtheriver. Join us again next week, and remember to like, rate, and subscribe to the podcast.